Hi everyone, back again for another bit of a video. We're going to have a look today at selvages. So we're learning about selvages. What we need to know is what they are, what they do, and why they're important to us. Okay, so let's have a look at what they are. The selvage is a narrow woven border that runs along both ends, so one side and the other side, of the width of the fabric. And the term selvage means self-edge. Okay, so here we go. I've got some examples here. So the selvage runs down the length of the fabric. Let's have a look at this one here. It runs down the length of the fabric on both sides, and it's created by the threads. So remember, we looked last time at woven fabrics. It's got threads running this way, threads running this way at right angles to each other, and it's the threads that are running this way fold back on themselves on the weaving machine over and over again as it's woven through, and it causes this thickening of the edges. Okay, so it's part of the weaving process, and it holds it onto the giant weaving machines or the looms as the fabric's getting made. All right, so if you have a look at, I've got a couple of examples here, and each one of these selvages are slightly different. All right, a little bit different. So these two are very obvious selvages. They've got some different printing on the side. You can see things like the people that produced the fabric, where it was made, when it was made, and again, when it was made, the producer. Sometimes you'll see little color charts like this, and that is to help you match your fabrics with different fabrics when you're using more than one kind in a shirt or a project, and you want to have a color match. You can use something like that on the selvage. Sometimes it'll tell you what it's actually made from, whether it's cotton or if it's got a polyester blend on the side. This is a chambray, and you can see that on this side the selvage is not so obvious, but when you turn it to the wrong side of the fabric, you can see it. And even though it looks like it's got some loose threads here, because it's the selvage, these loose threads don't pull and the sides won't fray. And this is because we don't want it to fray when it's on the weaving machine or the loom during the manufacturing process. So the actual selvages actually feel a bit different too. When you run your fingers along from the fabric to the selvage, you can feel it starting to get thicker, and you can feel these little perforated holes. Can you see those tiny little holes? And each selvage actually has those. And that's actually where it's wound onto the loom. Little spikes go in those holes, even on this one here. Can you see the little holes along there? And that's where it's wound onto the weaving machine. So the next question is it okay to use the selvages in sewing? So if I was to make a bag, if we were going to make one of our boomerang bags, could I use the selvage in the bag? Well, yes, you can, but it's not ideal. It's not a good idea to sew the selvage. The selvage makes it easy for us to find the direction of the fabric, so we know that our weave is going to run across from the selvage at right angles and up and down. So it's good to know the weave of the fabric, so when we're placing our pattern sheets on, we know which direction is the best direction to lay out our fabric. But because it's that little bit thicker, it can be a little bit trickier to sew. And when you wash it, the selvages actually shrink more because of how more tightly woven they are. They actually shrink more. So it can distort your final project. If you were to put it in the wash, you would have one side go shrink up a lot more than the rest. So it wouldn't be ideal. So we don't sew with selvages. We cut the selvage off when we're cutting out our patterns. So hopefully you now know what a selvage is. The selvage is the edges of the width of fabric that hold the fabric on the loom when it's getting made. And we don't sew using that little tiny bit of selvage. We can cut that little bit off. Okay? Good job, guys. So attached to your worksheets for this is a word search. And on the word search, it's got some new words. Here we go. Let's have a look at it. Today's word was selvage. We've got knit, which remember we did some talking about knit fabrics and that knit fabrics stretch. So we've got stretch. Needles. We're practicing with our needles to tie our knots. Woven, our woven fabric. Sew, which is what we love to do. Fabric, which we are learning about. And pinning, which is something we all practice at school as well. See if you can find those words in the word search.